Have you ever wondered why some women seem to have the gift of attracting and keeping the love they desire, while others spend years searching for a connection that never quite fully materializes? It's not about extraordinary beauty or supernatural luck. It's about something much deeper, something that has been inside you all along, waiting to be discovered. Imagine love as a garden, not the perfectly manicured gardens we see in magazines, but a living space, breathing, growing at its own wild pace. Your heart is that garden. And like any garden, it needs care, attention, an understanding of which seeds to plant and how to nurture what springs forth. Princess Diana, with her paradoxical vulnerability and strength, understood this profoundly. Behind the eyes that captivated the world was a woman who wrestled with the same insecurities you do, the same quest for genuine love, the same fears of abandonment. In her most candid moments, she revealed truths about love that transcend royal titles and touch the essence of what it means to be human. What you might not realize is that the power to transform your love life does not lie in manipulative tactics or fundamentally changing who you are. It lies in a deep understanding of how emotional bonds form, how they grow stronger, and yes, how they can be protected. Think back to the last time you felt truly safe with someone. That moment when your defenses dropped, when you didn't have to be anything other than your real self. Remember how the air felt different? How words flowed effortlessly? How silence wasn't threatening, but comforting? It is in these moments of authenticity that we discover the secret Diana knew. True love doesn't need external ropes to bind it, but rather an anchor in a connection born when two people see each other fully. Your emotional defense mechanisms, those armors you have built over the years to protect yourself, may be blocking exactly the connection you most desire. When you raise walls to ward off pain, you also block the entrance of light. It's a painful paradox many of us face. The more we try to guard ourselves against suffering, the further we push away the possibility of deep love. Through her own tumultuous journey, Diana learned that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the gateway to genuine intimacy. Her public struggles with self-esteem and finding her voice in a rigid system mirrored battles many of us fight quietly every day. What would happen if you could, just for a moment, let go of the need to appear strong all the time? If you could recognize that your fragility is also your greatest strength? The secret phrase that can bind the love of your life is not a whispered, magic formula under the moonlight. It is an inner truth manifested outwardly. It is the sincere expression of your most authentic self. Have you noticed how certain words seem to touch places within us we didn't even know existed? How some phrases stay with us for years, even decades, quietly shaping how we see the world and ourselves. Words have that power to heal, to transform, to build bridges where there were once chasms. Diana knew how to use words that broke through barriers, reaching people's hearts, not by being elaborate or intellectually impressive, but by being true, coming from a place of absolute sincerity. A river's water always finds its way to the sea, no matter the obstacles. Your capacity to love, pure, true, transformative, will also find its way to expression, no matter how many disappointments you've faced. As you reflect on these insights with me, you may feel a space opening within you, a recognition of truths that have always been there, waiting to be remembered. This is the inner work few are willing to do, but it changes everything. You know, we're building something important together here, a community of women seeking true love and deep connections. Would you like to be part of this movement? If what I'm sharing resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way we can walk together on this journey of discovery and transformation. Each video is an intimate conversation between us, a safe space to explore these truths together. Self-knowledge is the foundation on which every healthy relationship is built. How can you expect someone to love you fully when parts of you remain in the shadows, unknown, even to yourself? When Diana said, "I follow my heart, not my head," she was tapping into an ancient wisdom that transcends logic and calculation. In a world that prizes rationality above all, reconnecting with the wisdom of your heart can feel revolutionary. And it is. The love you seek already exists within you, not as a passive feeling waiting to be awakened by someone else, but as an active force, a way of being in the world. To love is a practice, a verb, not just a state of being. Think of the tides, the steady rhythm of coming in and going out. Your heart has those rhythms too. Moments of expansion where love flows freely. Moments of contraction where old fears resurface. This dance is not a sign of weakness or instability. It is the fundamental nature of being alive, of being open to the full human experience. When you set healthy boundaries in relationships, you are not pushing love away. You are creating the space it needs to bloom. Just as a garden needs fences not to isolate, but to protect what is precious, your personal boundaries allow genuine intimacy to flourish on secure ground. Diana learned this lesson through painful experiences. Her marriage, presented to the world as a fairy tale, turned out to be a battlefield where her identity fought to survive. But from those struggles was born a wisdom that benefited millions. You do not need a royal title to possess innate dignity. You do not need anyone's approval to deserve respect and true love. That inner certainty, that unshakable knowing of your worth, that is what attracts people ready to love you completely. Emotional independence does not mean a lack of need for others. It means relating from choice, not from lack. It is the difference between I need you to feel whole and I choose to share my wholeness with you. Think back to the last time you felt truly at peace. That moment when your outer world and inner world seemed in perfect harmony, when there was no need to be more, have more, prove more. Just being felt enough. That peace is your natural state. It is where your being always strives to return, like a river seeking the ocean. The layers of doubt, fear, and conditioning that cover that peace are not your true nature. They are just passing clouds in the infinite sky of your consciousness. The secret phrase that binds the love of your life begins to take shape when you recognize this fundamental truth about yourself. When you speak from that place of clarity and self-knowledge, your words carry a different frequency. They resonate more deeply, touching parts of the other that may have been dormant until then. There is a word in Portuguese with no exact translation in other languages: saudade. That complex feeling of presence and absence, of sensory memory, that remains alive even when the object of affection is far away. Diana, even after her physical departure, continues to evoke that saudade in millions, not just for what she represented publicly, but for what she reminded us about our own potential to love deeply. Her struggles with self-esteem, documented in interviews and accounts, mirror what so many women face daily: the constant questioning. Am I enough? Do I deserve to be loved? Can I trust this love when it comes? These questions do not arise from personal deficiency, but from deeply rooted social conditioning. From subtle and not so subtle messages we receive from childhood about what it means to be a woman, to be lovable, to be worthy. Deconstructing those limiting beliefs is an interior archaeology project. Layer by layer, you dig through stories that are not yours, expectations that no longer serve your growth, fears planted by past experiences, but that need not determine your future. When Diana chose to follow her heart, abandoning royal protocols to embrace humanitarian causes, she was showing that authenticity attracts true love, not necessarily the idealized romantic love, but love in its broadest sense: genuine connection, meaningful impact, lasting legacy. You carry that same ability to align so completely with your inner truth that your mere presence becomes magnetic. Not because you try to impress or please, but because you live in harmony with your essence. Water takes the shape of the vessel that contains it, but its fundamental nature remains the same. You may have adapted to relationships, situations, and expectations that did not honor your true nature. You may have contorted yourself to fit into spaces too small for your soul. That ends now. 7. Diana's secrets to attract. True love. 1. Authenticity. Above all, Diana learned that trying to be someone she wasn't only attracted people who loved a manufactured version of her. Authenticity is the most powerful magnet for drawing in those who truly belong in your life. 2. Vulnerability as strength. When Diana shared her battles with bulimia and depression, many saw weakness. But it was that very vulnerability that forged deep connections with millions around the world. 3. Compassion in action. Love isn't just a feeling, but an active practice. Diana turned her pain into purpose, showing that compassion in action is irresistibly attractive. 4. Full presence. In a distracted world, giving someone your complete attention is a revolutionary act of love. Diana had the gift of making each person feel like the only one in the room. 5. Courage to change. Diana refused to accept a marriage that existed only in appearance. Her bravery in seeking authentic happiness inspired women worldwide to honor their own joy. 6. Balance of strength and softness. Diana demonstrated that femininity and power are not opposites, but complements. This integration creates a magnetic presence that cannot be ignored. 7. Continuous self-knowledge. Diana's commitment to personal growth, even under intense public scrutiny, shows that self-awareness is the indispensable foundation for attracting love aligned with who you truly are. These principles are not shallow techniques or manipulations. They are ways of being that flow naturally from a woman who chose the path of self-discovery and authenticity. The emotional bonds we form throughout life deeply shape how we relate to love. From our earliest moments, we develop internal blueprints for how intimate relationships work. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, you may unconsciously recreate that pattern in your adult relationships. Understanding these patterns, not to blame yourself, but to set yourself free, is one of the most powerful acts of self-care you can offer yourself. Diana, with all her sophistication and status, faced that same human journey. Her relationships reflected a quest for validation, fear of abandonment, and a deep yearning to be truly seen and loved for who she was, not for the title she held. That is something that connects women of all ages, cultures, and circumstances, the fundamental longing for authentic connection, for a love that doesn't have to be constantly earned or proved, but that exists as mutual recognition of inherent worth. When you free your voice, when you allow your words to spring from a place of absolute truth, something magical happens. Not because you are manipulating or strategically planning what to say, but because you are operating from a different field of awareness. The most powerful words are those born from inner silence, from the space of clarity that emerges when you stop trying to be what you think you should be and simply are. In that state, the secret phrase that can bind the love of your life isn't something you need to memorize or artificially practice. It emerges organically, like water from a natural spring. It is the verbal expression of your deepest truth, offered at the perfect moment when both are truly ready to listen. Diana had that ability to say the right thing at the right time because she spoke from the heart. Not a naive or immature heart, but a heart that had known both joy and suffering. A heart that understood the complexities of human love and still chose to believe in its transformative possibility. The emotional defense mechanisms you've developed over your lifetime were essential at one point. They protected vulnerable parts of you when protection was needed. Honor them for the role they played. Then, gently acknowledge that some of them may now be blocking the very connection your heart most desires. Denial, rationalization, projection, these mechanisms distort your perception of relationships. They create a subtle barrier between you and the other, a filter through which true intimacy struggles to penetrate. Imagine if you could recognize these patterns the moment they arise. If you could say to yourself, I'm pulling away because I'm afraid of being hurt again, or I'm creating unnecessary conflict because I fear losing my identity and closeness. That kind of self-awareness doesn't happen overnight. It is cultivated patiently, with compassion for yourself, with a willingness to look honestly at your patterns without paralyzing judgment. Diana fought that inner battle under the global spotlight. Her struggles, now documented and studied, reveal a woman determined to break dysfunctional patterns, even when it meant confronting an entire system that preferred she remain in her assigned role. Her journey wasn't perfect. There were relapses, moments of doubt, decisions she might revisit if given the chance. But what makes her story so universally resonant is precisely that humanity, that willingness to try, fail, learn, and try again. You carry that resilience within you too, the ability to fall and rise, to have your heart broken yet choose to stay open, to be disappointed yet maintain faith in genuine connection. It is that quality, more than any specific phrase or communication technique, that creates your magnetic field. That draws people who recognize in you something rare and precious, the courage to love despite knowing the risk. Paradoxically, healthy personal boundaries create the space for deeper intimacy. When you clearly know what is acceptable and what isn't, when you communicate those boundaries with compassionate firmness, you lay the groundwork for a relationship built on mutual respect. Despite her natural kindness, Diana learned over time to set boundaries, to say no when necessary, to refuse participation in dynamics that diminished her spirit. That personal evolution transformed not only her relationships, but her relationship with herself. Think of boundaries as the banks of a river. Without them, water disperses, loses force and direction. With clearly defined banks, the river flows with power and purpose. Your personal boundaries work the same way, not to restrict love, but to channel it so that it nourishes and sustains rather than floods and destroys. Diana's emotional independence did not come easily. It was born of necessity, of circumstances, that forced her to find inner strength she may not have known she possessed. In her own words, you find strengths you didn't know you had when you're fighting to carve out your own space. That emotional autonomy does not mean isolation. It means creating relationships from conscious choice, not desperate dependence. It's the difference between being with someone because you can't bear to be alone and being with someone because you choose to share your already full life. When you cultivate that independence, you paradoxically become more capable of true intimacy because you're not seeking someone else to fill your internal voids. You're offering a cup that's already full, overflowing. The secret phrase that can bind the love of your life emerges naturally from this state of inner fullness. It isn't a magic formula or seduction trick. It's the sincere expression of who you are when you're not trying to be anyone but yourself. Imagine sitting across from someone who truly sees you, not your outward appearance, not your achievements or failures, not your past or projected future, just you, in this moment, in all your human complexity. What would you say to that person? What truth would emerge, effortlessly and authentically? What would your heart express once all societal masks fell away? That is your secret phrase, unique, as your fingerprint. Powerful not because it manipulates or controls, but because it comes from a place of absolute truth. Diana found her authentic voice gradually, through trial and error, through moments of courage and temporary retreats. "I lead with my heart, not my head," she said, articulating a philosophy that challenged the conventions of her time and position. That magnetic authenticity doesn't depend on perfection. In fact, it is often our revealed vulnerabilities and embraced imperfections that create the deepest points of connection with other human beings. Your emotional scars, the battles you fought silently, the times you've fallen and found the strength to rise again, those are your most precious treasures. Not to be flaunted indiscriminately, but to be honored as integral parts of who you are. Transformative love doesn't seek polished perfection. It seeks authenticity. It seeks courage. It seeks the beauty that emerges when someone chooses to be real in a world that values appearances. Diana demonstrated this repeatedly. When she touched AIDS patients at a time of widespread stigma, when she spoke openly of her battles with depression and eating disorders, when she refused to pretend. Her marriage was perfect when reality was very different. These choices of authenticity created a legacy that transcends her brief life. A legacy that continues to inspire women to pursue love that honors their essence rather than demands their diminishment. Healthy self-esteem is not arrogance or an inflated sense of importance. It is the calm, steady acknowledgement of your inherent worth. It is knowing to your bones that you deserve respect, consideration, and love, not because you are perfect, but because you are perfectly you. Building that internal foundation is a lifetime's work. It doesn't happen instantaneously or through superficial affirmations. It happens through small daily choices that honor who you are, through acts of self-care that show yourself that your needs matter, through boundaries that protect your energy and well-being. Despite her privileged position, Diana struggled with issues of self-worth. Her troubled marriage, the pressures of public life, the impossible expectations placed upon her, all tested her sense of personal value profoundly. What transformed her into a beloved global icon was not her physical beauty or royal title, but the visible journey of a woman discovering her own voice, her own worth, her own capacity to make a positive impact on the world. That evolution is possible for each of us. We don't need crowns or castles. We only need the courage to do the inner work that frees us from self-imposed limitations and beliefs that no longer serve our growth. The secret phrase that binds the love of your life emerges from this foundation of healthy self-esteem. When you speak from that place of unquestionable inner worth, your words carry a silent authority, a certainty that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The emotional bonds we form from childhood create internal templates for how relationships function. If your earliest attachments were characterized by inconsistency, abandonment, or conditional love, your nervous system may be programmed to seek or recreate those patterns, even if you consciously want something different. Understanding your attachment style, whether you tend to cling anxiously or pull away defensively when intimacy deepens, can be revolutionary for your love life. Not to label or limit yourself, but to develop compassion for patterns that might have seemed inexplicable. Diana, as revealed in biographies and later studies, exhibited anxious attachment traits, a fierce need for connection combined with a deep fear of abandonment. This pattern influenced her choices, her reactions, her ways of seeking and expressing love. Knowing these patterns doesn't determine your fate, but illuminates paths to healing. When you understand the roots of your relationship behaviors, you gain the power to choose differently, to break cycles that no longer serve your growth. Imagine yourself as a wild garden, not a rigid ornamental one. In your true nature, you contain delicate flowers and hardy herbs, protective thorns and soft petals, cool shade and invigorating light. These elements are not in conflict. They, together, create the unique ecosystem that is you. Integrating these apparent contradictions, your strength and vulnerability, your need for connection and desire for autonomy, your capacity for deep joy, and your familiarity with pain, that inner work lays the groundwork for transformative love. In her finest moments, Diana embodied this integration. The princess who followed protocol and the rebel who broke rules, the polished public figure and the genuinely vulnerable woman, the devoted mother and the global humanitarian. These were not separate personas, but facets of one complex woman embracing her multidimensionality. You contain multitudes too. You are not just one thing or another. You are a constantly evolving human being capable of depth and lightness, seriousness, and playfulness, careful planning, and joyful spontaneity. The secret phrase that binds the love of your life arises when you speak from that integration, when you are not trying to show only your best parts or hide what you consider imperfect, when you offer the whole truth of who you are, neither apologetically nor arrogantly. This is the transformative power of the authenticity Diana eventually discovered. When you have the courage to be completely yourself, you create space for others to do the same. And in that space of mutual authenticity, truly transformative, connections can flourish. The love that endures, that sustains through life's inevitable storms, is not built on illusions or fanciful expectations. It is anchored in radical acceptance of yourself and of the other, in the recognition that perfection is not the goal. Joint growth, mutual understanding, and the ongoing choice to turn toward one another, these are the true foundations. Even after her marriage ended, Diana demonstrated the capacity to grow through pain, to transform disappointment into renewed purpose, to believe new forms of connection were possible despite experiences that could have closed her heart permanently. That resilience, that refusal to become cynical despite legitimate reasons, is perhaps her most powerful legacy, the living proof that vulnerability is not weakness, but the ultimate source of our human strength. You carry the same capacity to learn from past relationships without letting them define your future, to keep your heart open despite knowing the risk of pain, to offer authenticity in a world that often rewards polished performances. The secret phrase that binds the love of your life is not a one-time magic formula for instant effect. It is an expression of your deepest inner truth, offered repeatedly in many forms through the seasons of shared life. It is both a declaration and a question, both an offering and an invitation, both a boundary and an opening. It is the paradox of true love, expressed in words that come not from strategy, but from genuine presence. Diana found her voice through trial and error, through moments of courage and strategic retreats. Her evolution from a shy princess to a woman of clear purpose shows that authenticity is not a fixed state achieved once and for all, but a continuous practice that deepens over time. You are on your own journey of discovery, to peel away layers that no longer serve you, to find words for truths that have always existed within you, waiting to be acknowledged and expressed. Trust this process. Trust the wisdom of your heart. Trust that when you speak from your deepest truth, those ready for that truth will respond. The rest, those who prefer comfortable illusion over imperfect but authentic reality, are not yours to keep. The secret phrase that can bind the love of your life already exists within you, not as a memorized formula, but as the natural expression of your truest self. When you speak from that place of inner clarity, people who vibrate at the same frequency of authenticity recognize something familiar, something rare and precious. And that mutual recognition, not manipulation, not strategy, not rehearsed techniques, is what creates bonds that truly last. With all her human complexity, Diana reminds us that none of us is just one thing. We are strong and fragile, courageous and fearful, wise and lost. This shared humanity is what builds bridges between hearts. It is what makes the kind of love that needs no ropes or chains possible, because it chooses to stay, chooses to see, chooses to grow, even when it would be easier to leave. You deserve that love, not because you are perfect, but because you are perfectly, unrepeatably yourself.